Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
Welcome to Wild Week number 3 in the NFL. My goodness, what a day we had today. It is week 3 of the FantasyGuru.com Sunday night wrap-up podcast. Paul Kelly and John Hansen here with you. And John, do we have you on the line, sir?
Yes, we do, sir. We're hearing that fancy introduction and all that. So, yes, I'm here and ready to go.
Like that. Those are the signs of a wild week number 3. My goodness, these games were a lot of fun to look at today, John, especially those 1 o'clock games. We had those overtime finishes. Just a crazy, crazy week, especially early today.
Yeah, it was crazy, but overall I thought it was another pretty good week. It seems like we're putting in some work here. I know I am trying to do our best to help the subscribers, give out as many good tips as we can. They're not all going to come through, obviously, and we're going to be wrong on some guys like Matt Schaub today. But overall, I thought it was another solid week, so I'm feeling all right here after 3 weeks. The league it's crazy as always, but at least this year compared to last, if you do your homework, it is easier to navigate in fantasy because last year was a nightmare for like 2.5 months, and then things kind of leveled off.
Let's begin in Chicago with the Bears coming off that drubbing at the hands of the Packers last week. How would they bounce back today against the Rams? They won 23-6, but let's give some credit to the Rams. This is a better defense, I think, than a lot of people give them credit for. Bears on offense today. Jay Cutler completed 17 of 31 for 183 yards. No scores, hasn't thrown a touchdown, John, in his last 2 games.
Yeah, we didn't love Cutler today. Certainly gave some credit to the Ram D, as you mentioned. I think Brandon Marshall almost had a touchdown. A little disappointed that he didn't score, but he did get 5 for 71, not too bad. Alshon Jeffrey, by the way, I don't have the snap count in front of me yet. We'll get those tomorrow. But he could have had a touchdown. It was a play where it was a pass thrown to him. He gained separation again, and there was defensive holding on the play. So he's on the radar in a deeper league. I'm telling you, Alshon Jeffrey, I think it's only a matter of time until he emerges as the second most targeted wideout for the Bears.
Matt Forte still out for the Bears. That meant Michael Bush was going to carry the load today. 18 carries, 55 yards, not great. Did get you the touchdown, but it was Khalil Bell who was carrying the ball late to close this one out, John.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I'm going to have to check that out and watch the game, but I saw Bush a little bit early. He was running hard, didn't have a ton of room to run, so again, we give some credit to the Rams. Definitely liked Bush this week. We had him high. Thank God he scored. Because, look, when he's the guy, you got to rank him high because he can catch the football, help you out in the passing game, and obviously he's a touchdown monger. A little disappointed, but look, it's not horrible. When your guy gets you, 12, 13, 14 points, not too shabby.
Over for the Rams, the big question heading into today, was Steven Jackson going to play? He did go. He was active. He started in this game. He ended up missing some time in the middle of the game, but finished up with 29 yards. But in general, it's been rough sledding for Jackson so far this year, John.
Yeah, he popped off a 13-yard run, and I thought he looked like dog dirt. I mean, he looked really slow on that run. Yeah. Granted, he's physical and all that and great, but geez, yeah, not so good. We kind of got this one, I think. We didn't love the Ram offense here against the Bears. They're a defense that you can move the football on, but when you lack the talent, it's tough, and they lack talent other than Danny Amendola, who thankfully got a little hot late because he was off to a really slow start. The Rams just don't have enough here. We love Sam Bradford, but they just don't have. He doesn't have enough weapons. The O-line not very good. They were up in his grill in this game from what I saw. And again, other than Danny Amendola, geez, I mean, Lance Kendricks, you got to throw us a bone here, Lance Kendricks. The coaches do something with this guy because if like I said on the radio on Friday, if you need 26 yards, start Lance Kendricks. If you need 27, look for another option.
Next game up, Buffalo at Cleveland, and let's begin with the Bills, were the big buzzkill of the day, injury-wise. C.J. Spiller, luckily he got you a touchdown before he got hurt, but he did go down with the shoulder. What do we know about him right now?
Apparently the injury is not serious. It's serious is probably meaning weeks or a month, something like that. So I guess that's the latest. Chan Gailey somewhat downplayed the injury, but boy, he was on his way to another huge game. He had a nice catch and run. The play he got injured on was called back. That was like a catch and run for like 25 yards. He had all kinds of room, man. He would have gone nuts again. So it's a real shame, but I go back to, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when we were kind of pining for Tashard Choice to get an opportunity. He could for at least 1 week, maybe 2. I know Fred Jackson's way ahead of schedule here, but Tashard Choice, if Spiller obviously is out and Jackson's not ready, Tashard Choice is the pickup of the week at running back. Certainly serviceable, 20 carries. That's a little surprising. They do want to keep, Paul, I think, the ball, believe it or not, out of Ryan Fitzpatrick's hands. I said on the radio all summer that I thought he could throw 30. He's on a pace for like 42, 43. Yep. But they do want to take the ball out of his hands because he still does turn that ball over. No interceptions today, but he's still a little scary when he goes back to throw.
Fitzpatrick, 8 touchdowns now in his first 3 games, and Stevie Johnson now with a score in each of his first 3.
Yeah, and he gets open. He is always wide open right down the middle of the field, so he's looking great. I actually was sniffing a deep reach this week in Donald Jones based on my studies of the Cleveland Browns, and hey, I think I was on the right track. T.J. Graham scored, and Jones did have 5 for 42 on 6 grabs, but he's a low-end guy. You can't expect the world with him. It was a worthwhile reach. It certainly didn't come through. The only real buzzkill here was Scotty Chandler, certainly not a weekly starter, but a backup that you can utilize for sure if you need help, because not today, but he does get red zone looks.
For the Cleveland Browns, the offense looked pretty good last week against Cincinnati. Today, back to reality a little bit, I think. Trent Richardson, 51 total yards, did get you the touchdown, which is great. You'll take it. But the passing game still in rough shape here, John. Whedon throws for 237 and a touchdown. But Greg Little, really the only receiver at this point that you'd be considering starting, especially in smaller leagues. He's only got 74 receiving yards on the year.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him in this game. They were getting other guys involved. I think what the storyline of the game for the Browns was they got the tight ends involved, and there wasn't enough for Little. Massaquoi got hurt. He made a nice play, a 14-yard catch that was actually almost a touchdown. He got knocked out, I think, like at the 1-yard line. Then he got hurt, but there wasn't nothing going on with Little here. From what I saw, he wasn't involved. Obviously, he only had 4 targets, so that's a concern. We felt a lot better after last week, but now we're back to, like, who the hell's Greg Little? I mean, can we ever use this guy? I would say at this point, no. Unless you're in a PPR, he's just not consistent enough to where you have some confidence. Now, in a deep league, tell you what, Jordan Cameron is a guy that they really like a lot. Very athletic. He saw 7 targets today, second on the team, 5 for 45. That's not great, but he played a lot because Alex Smith was hurt. Ben Watson was also active, oddly enough, but he only had 4 for 15. Again, deep league, keeper league especially, Jordan Cameron is someone to watch because they really need to get the tight ends involved in this offense.
Next game up, Tampa Bay at Dallas. Cowboys win it ugly, 16-10. And for the second week in a row, John, this Cowboy offense just isn't clicking on all cylinders here. Tony Romo goes 25 of 39 for 283, decent yardage numbers, but no touchdowns today. The only touchdown on offense for Dallas was DeMarco Murray, who got his first TD of the year, but he runs for just 38 yards on 18 carries, so things clearly just not in sync here with the Dallas offense.
Yeah, and I think it's the one thing we talked about in the preseason that we were concerned about was the O-line. I think it's the offensive line. It stinks up the middle. It's not very good at all. So that is a concern. Really surprised that Murray didn't do more than he did, and they continue to just not take advantage of what he has to offer as a receiver out of the backfield. Now, he did score, so he got you 10. In a PPR, what did he get you, 13, 14 points? That's not bad. That's not bad. You'll take it, but he doesn't score a ton of touchdowns. They don't run for a lot of touchdowns in Big D. I'm a little worried about it here. 2.1 yards a carry. DeMarco Murray is a lot better than that. Miles Austin continues to step up a little bit, although he left the game, so injuries are still a problem. And then Jason Witten was the big guy here. Like, what the hell happened to Jason Witten? We got to give some credit to Tampa's D, but overall, Paul, very disappointed in the Cowboys because Romo in the past really had Tampa's number, and obviously they got lit up. It was in Big D. We were expecting a lot more than this, so we come away feeling a little underwhelming here for the Cowboys.
Jason Witten just 76 receiving yards through the first 3 games as we move over to Tampa Bay. Boy, it didn't look good today for Josh Freeman. It was ugly. 10 of 28 for 110 yards, 1 touchdown to Luke Stocker, who nobody on the planet is starting for fantasy. So just a bad day all the way around for this Buccaneer offense for fantasy. Doug Martin continues to get his carries, 19, but just 53 yards. He's under 3.5 yards per carry on the season so far, John.
Yeah, and he's a marked man because they have no weapons. They got nothing. I mean, Vincent Jackson's a good player, obviously. Mike Williams, I kind of thought he'd be a worthwhile reach this week, and I think I was on the right track there because Vincent Jackson was contained. That was my angle. I thought Vincent Jackson was probably going to get contained, which he did. Freeman missed him for a couple of completions that I saw, but the problem is Freeman is just not very good. He has got scatter shot accuracy. He's just not a very good quarterback right now. So Tampa's, and I'm a little worried about Martin too. Again, he's great, but against a good defense, and I would call Dallas a good defense, it's concerning because they're just going to stack the box against them, and we'll see what we saw today. I can almost envision this stat line coming down the line here. 19 for 53. We'll look at what I gave him. Obviously, I gave him a little bit more than that. Yeah, I gave him 20 carries for 69 yards. That's not great, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of saw that coming, but again, no action here in the passing attack, too, for Doug Martin. 2 for 21 is not awful, but I would expect to hope for a little bit more from him. So, again, this is another team that I'm worried about.
Vincent Jackson caught just 1 of his 7 pass targets on the day. As we move on to Jacksonville and Indianapolis, actually a pretty exciting game here as the Jags won at 22-17. So let's start with them. The offense all about MJD again today. 28 carries, had the long 59-yard touchdown run, finished with 177 yards on the day. Just a fantastic matchup for him, and he always seems to kill the Colts, John.
He does, and I asked him about it, and he said he's just very comfortable with them, and he's very familiar with them. He knows the scheme now. It's a new scheme, too, yet he still did it. And Pat Angerer's been out, and he's a pretty good linebacker, and Dwight Freeney was inactive. And you got to love MJD. I mean, the guy's unbelievable, 177 with a touch. Not really as involved in the passing attack as we'd like to see, but we're fine with it when the guy gets 28 carries here. Obviously, it was ugly otherwise, though, other than that late flash play by Cecil Shorts. What an amazing play, 80-yard touchdown. Now, I don't know if you want to pick him up, but I did kind of half-jokingly tweet about 4 weeks ago that once LaRon Robinson gets hurt, Shorts may be worth picking up on the waiver wire. Of course, LaRon Robinson got hurt, and Shorts has an 80-yard touchdown. But the problem that I have with them is that they need speed. They need a downfield guy, and I don't think that's Shorts. So Justin Blackmon, by the way, is still MIA for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So basically, we're back to square one for now. You're avoiding everyone on the Jags other than MJD.
For the Colts, Andrew Luck throws 46 times, completed less than half of those, though, just 22 of 46, 313 yards, though, and 2 touchdowns. You'll take it. And Reggie Wayne, one guy you can clearly hang your hat on here, John. He's got 23 receptions through the first 3 weeks, 15 pass targets in this game.
Yep, he's the guy. There's no question. That last pass was to Wayne in the end zone, too, the Hail Mary. So you feel good about him. Andrew Luck, I had him ranked. Someone asked me on the radio today, Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning. I had Luck higher than Manning this week, and he's getting it done here. You gotta recognize that they can't run the ball. That's one, and all of a sudden he's got some viable wideouts here. Austin Collie did get hurt, and that's a terrible sign for him. But how about T.Y. Hilton, the rookie? Now again, I don't know if this will be just a flash in the pan, but what I do know is that they are still searching for playmakers at receiver. And T.Y. Hilton can fly, and he did flash in the preseason. That's 2 great touchdown catches from Luck that he's had this year. One of them was in the preseason. So in a deep league, I think T.Y. Hilton is not a bad guy. If you got a dead spot in your roster, pick him up and just see what you see here because he could be a nice little stash and hope guy for some upside at receiver.
Donnie Avery, after being productive the first couple of weeks, just 2 for 28 today, John, but he did have 9 pass targets. Do you think he gets back in the flow of things next week?
I would think so. He looked really good in week 2, and you mentioned the 9 targets, so a little disappointed he couldn't get more than 2 for 28, but if the guy looks good, which he does, and gets targets, which he is, and the quarterback is serviceable and they can't run it, I think it all adds up to Donnie Avery is still a viable guy. Probably would help him if Austin Collie wasn't in the mix because even though Hilton came on strong, you got to figure Avery is looking like the number 2 option in the passing game. The one buzzkill is Fleener. I don't get it. I'll have to watch it. I don't know if he's blocking more, but Kobe Fleener has been MIA the last 2 weeks after a pretty encouraging week 1. Meanwhile, Dwayne Allen got 6 targets with 5 grabs.
Jets and Dolphins in an ugly game down in Miami today. Jets win in overtime, 23-20. Couple of key injuries in this one. Let's start with the Dolphins and Reggie Bush, who's got a knee injury. He left the game, did not return. What do we know about him so far?
I'm actually pulling it up right now. We got it here. Let's see what the latest is on Bush. I know it wasn't considered ultra serious, and we'll have to see.
I know he did come out in the second half. He did come out, and he was running and jogging up and down the sideline. I guess maybe testing that knee to see if he could go, but he didn't make it back in the game.
Right. He was set to return until the knee stiffened up, according to the Miami Herald. The injury isn't believed to be season-threatening. I guess that's all we know for now.
Okay. In his spot, Daniel Thomas got 19 carries in this game, 69 yards and a touchdown. And Lamar Miller continues to look pretty good, 9 carries for 48. He had a nice 22-yard run today.
Yep. Daniel Thomas did have a fumble, and I think that at some point in the game there was concern about giving him the ball because of ball security. But he did get also a vulture touchdown over Reggie Bush before Bush got hurt. Bush got a couple of carries inside like the 15 or the 10, and then they got down real tight, and they pulled Bush and put in Thomas. He did convert and scored. So he's a viable pickup. Hey, anybody at running back who is getting touches, you certainly want to look at if you need some depth. And Lamar Miller is as well. Miller's probably more of a long-term upside kind of a guy, whereas Thomas may be a little bit more of a short-term fix. Bush has been great. And by the way, he was well on his way to a really good game against a pretty tight defense. So once again, this guy comes through, but we worry about the injury. So you got 3 guys now in the mix here: Daniel Thomas, Lamar Miller, and of course Bush, and Ron Jaworski Lane did get a short touchdown as well.
Ryan Tannehill throws for just 196, no scores. Hard to count on these Dolphin receivers considering the quarterback play. But Hartline seemed to be a guy who was coming on. 9 catches for 111 last week, just 1 catch in this game today.
Well, I didn't expect anything because I know Darrelle Revis got hurt, but that was the factor. Revis got hurt. The Jets secondary is still pretty good. I know Cromartie was on a lot, but I will say this. Tannehill, I think, he's doing pretty well here, considering the fact that he's in a bad situation overall with a lack of weaponry at receiver. And number 2, Hartline had a great 41-yard catch down the sideline. The guy, I hate to say, he's kind of like Brandon Lloyd on the outside. He's got really good moves that get him open, and he makes spectacular catches. And he had a really nice one for 41, and he, by the way, just missed a touchdown. So I'll tell you what, if he's still out there, pick him up, and I think you can use him in a deeper league. He is the guy for Ryan Tannehill.
Jets offense was ugly today, especially a few times in the red zone down close. They really had some issues. Sanchez on the day, though, ends up coming through for fantasy with 306 yards passing and a touchdown to Curley. But Santonio Holmes scored a TD last week, 9 catches for 147 today. He seems to be the one guy you can kind of sort of rely on in this Jets offense.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. I don't have a ton of confidence. I liked him this week, actually. I had him on my reach list and all that, and certainly came through. I just didn't think they'd run the ball very well against Miami, which was the case. Yeah. So certainly you could do a lot worse than Santonio. I think Sanchez, for the most part this year, has been okay. He hasn't been that bad. I'm shocked that they're doing as well as they are, actually, considering Dustin Keller has been banged up and the weaponry otherwise is terrible. I mean, we saw Stephen Hill. Look at this, 7 targets, 0 catches. So clearly proving that week 1 was an aberration. Chaz Schillens should have had a touchdown, by the way. So Holmes is the guy. And I got to say, this Jeremy Curley has made plays. I'm shocked. He's made some big plays in 3 weeks here. So in a deep league, geez, he may be worth the pickup. But I think the story of the game continues to be Bilal Powell. Now, maybe I'm going crazy here, but Bilal Powell looks slimmer to me this year, and he runs better in green. He's a lot more, I guess the fair word is dynamic, because compared to Sean Green, Paul, you're dynamic. But Bilal Powell, I mean, he averaged 4.5 a pop. He's involved in the passing attack with 5 grabs. I mean, look, you're not loving in life if you're picking him up on the waiver wire, but with leagues, if there's nothing out there, pick him up. I wouldn't be floored if he's kind of emerged here and maybe even got more of the carries than Green as we move along here.
Yeah, Sean Green really struggling, just 2.8 yards per carry on the season so far. Next game up, upset of the day. 49ers lose their first game in Minnesota, 24-13. Let's start with the 49ers offense, and Alex Smith throws his first INT in 9 games, John. He finishes with 204 yards, the TD to Vernon Davis, who now has 4 touchdowns on the season so far. But outside of that, not much happening here today.
Yeah, the Viking pass rush stepped it up a little bit from what I saw, and that was a big problem. They just played a brilliant game. The Vikings were awesome. I mean, what else can you say? Their defense did a number on the Niners. I thought Vernon Davis will go off. Thank God he scored. He had a nice game, 5 for 52 with a touch. I thought Crabtree would do very well, 6 grabs, but only 40 yards. Moss, well, I think the over-under on the number of weeks until he quits is probably 4 right now. His snaps limited. Manningham did have a decent game, but what can you say? I'm not worried about the Niners. I think that Alex Smith, for the most part, his body of work has been pretty darn good here for the last, say, 10, 15 games, going back to last year, obviously the playoffs.
Yeah.
But you got to give credit to the Minnesota. Every once in a while, Paul, you got to give some credit to the defense, and I think that's the case here. It was in Minnesota, and just shocked. But again, we're going to give some credit to the Vikings.
Vikings offense, Christian Ponder looked good today, 198 yards passing, 2 touchdowns throwing, added another one on the ground. He can get something done with his feet, which is always nice. Adrian Peterson, we knew it would be a tough go for him today. He did get 25 carries, 86 yards, which is about as well as you could expect him to do against this defense.
Yeah, he ran hard, man. He looked fine. There was a couple short yardage plays where he had to really push off on that knee, and there was no problem there. So, look, he's not getting it done for 2 games in a row here, but there'll be better days for Peterson, assuming he can stay healthy and not have any setbacks with his knee. Amazing. But I'll tell you, Christian Ponder, very impressive, very relaxed, confident, decisive, pretty accurate. The arm strength's good, efficient. I mean, what else can you say? Christian Ponder is a nice little option here on the waiver wire. Keep in mind, he's going to get Jerome Simpson back. And why are we all excited about Jerome Simpson? Well, he's got a lot of talent, raw physical ability, obviously. Very dynamic, explosive playmaker, and the receiving core otherwise is absolute garbage. I cannot believe, other than Percy Harvin, of course, and Rudolph, but I can't believe that they're manufacturing offense with Devin Aromajadu and guys like Michael Jenkins and Stephen Burton. So now he's going to get Simpson back. So they're one wideout away from being real nice here. Because, by the way, Paul, the O-line, pretty damn good in Minnesota lately.
Percy Harvin, 9 for 89. He doesn't have any touchdowns yet on the year, but 27 receptions in the first 3 games. He's fantastic in a PPR. And you mentioned briefly Kyle Rudolph, who now has 3 touchdowns the last 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. We love that, man. We were all over this guy. Red zone. Going back to last year, I really started to see something with him as a red zone guy. So, yeah, I was a little bummed in one of my leagues because I picked up forgot to start Martellus Bennett, and I was a little bummed that my alternative was Rudolph, and he actually outdid him. So I feel pretty good about that. And you feel good about it if you have him because, again, as we said all year, he's the number 2 option in the passing attack, red zone guy all the way. Because keep in mind, Percy Harvin's not a very good red zone guy. So they're going to look for Rudolph all the time in the red zone. So he could score, Paul. I'm thinking Kyle Rudolph gets 10 touchdowns this year.
Our next game, also a big upset today, is the Saints dropped to 0-3. They lost at home to Kansas City, 27-24. Just a monster day for Jamal Charles. Of course, he was disappointing last week, didn't finish the game, but today, 39 touches, 288 yards, the 91-yard touchdown. Just an amazing performance today, John.
Geez, I hope everyone started him because I think we spun him pretty well here. The Sunday morning column, I said I'm starting him against this D on the turf. So hopefully we couldn't rank him all that high simply because there were some good running backs out there and the fact that he did have that knee scare. So I hope everyone started him, for God's sakes. Clearly, Paul, that knee is fine. He looked great, obviously. But, again, the most encouraging thing about it was 33 carries, 8 targets, 6 grabs, assuming we don't hear that He's like his knee is dangling off his torso after this game. Boy, you got to feel damn good about Jamal Charles. Peyton Hillis, though, he could be dead. He did get injured, but wow, it's I'm a little surprised here. Obviously, they can't go forward with Charles getting 33 carries, so they need someone else. And if Peyton Hillis can't do it, the Sean Drawn actually looks decent for the Chiefs.
Dwayne Bowe, 7 catches, 79 yards. Figured he'd get a touchdown today, but it didn't happen for him. But 16 big pass targets in the game. Clearly, he is their go-to guy as we move it over to the New Orleans Saints. And Marcus Colston was a question mark heading into today. He was limited in practice all week. Game time decision. Of course, he was active, started the game. 3 catches, 40 yards. He has just 160 yards through the first 3 games. Are you concerned about him at this point?
Yeah, well, we knocked him down to 24 at wide receiver. I didn't know how far down we could go because the matchup was so darn good, and you are talking about the Saints. So, yeah, I think we are absolutely concerned. Put it this way, you would think he'd be the ultimate buy low candidate for the trade article. I can't do it. He's not going to be in the article because of this foot problem. So it's definitely time to be concerned for Marcus Colston. They're 0-3. Things are looking ugly here. They'll obviously keep it together with Breeze. But their passing options are somewhat limited here. This is going to disrupt the entire offense. Could be good news for Lance Moore, who I did like this week, and he had a touchdown. He actually should have had 2. He just missed the second. But, yeah, I'm absolutely concerned about Marcus Colston.
Darren Sproles, 13 catches last week and had no carries in the first 2 games. Then today, no catches, but carried 7 times for 62 yards. It's hard to figure out what's going on with Darren Sproles, but it's very odd to see him not have a single reception in the game.
Yeah, but I'll tell you who the most consistent guy here is. It's Pierre Thomas. Pierre Thomas just missed a touchdown in this game. He had 6 targets, 4 for 55. Very quietly, this guy gets it done. And meanwhile, you can't count on Mark Ingram. I know Mr. Caplan, I don't want to throw him under the bus, but he kind of liked Ingram, and I was like, yeah, I do too. He's running hard, and it's a good matchup, but I couldn't do it on Sunday to reach him. I just can't do it. It's like no matter how good this guy looks, they just don't commit to him because Pierre Thomas commands touches and, of course, Sproles. So, boy, Mark Ingram's a real pain in the rear. That's the bottom line here.
Jimmy Graham, 4 receptions, just 16 yards, but he did get you to the touchdown to bail you out today. As we move on to Detroit and Tennessee, boy, this was a fun game to look at. Tennessee wins it in overtime, 44-41. And let's begin with the Lions offense, who Mikel LeSure, seeing his first action in the NFL, they committed to him right away, John, by giving him the start. I think that definitely says something about how they feel about him and the kind of back they want him to be. 26 carries for 100 yards and a score in his very first game today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we were all over this guy going back to the 3rd week of the preseason. We had that last-minute stock watch, and I was kind of feeling it here with Mikel LeSure. And then today I wrote that I wouldn't be surprised if he had a big game. So he did, and I'm not surprised. And I talked with someone who covers the team for the Detroit Free Press this morning, and he said they're committed to him. He's the guy. They want him to be the guy, and obviously we saw that. So he looked pretty decisive. Nice game for him. He can catch the football. So if you got Mikel LeSure, it looks like you got a nice option here because they have to balance out this offense. They can't rely solely on Stafford throwing it. Of course, Stafford got a little bit banged up. They can't rely on the passing attack. He'll undergo an MRI with his leg on Monday, so hopefully he's fine. But Mikel LeSure is rock solid right now. He'll get goal line carries, although Joique Bell did get some goal line work. So Joique Bell's in the mix here. A little strange that Kevin Smith is just dead. I don't get it. That was odd.
Yeah, I mean, 30 touches for LeSure, 0 for Kevin Smith. I mean, that's just unbelievable. But you mentioned Stafford getting nicked up in this one. Shaun Hill came in late, 10 of 13, throws a couple of touchdowns. We saw him a couple of years ago when Stafford was out. He was very productive as a fill-in quarterback. If Stafford's going to miss any time at all, Hill is a guy that you want to go out and get.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about it. We used to call him a volume quarterback because he just throws it 40-plus times. So, yeah, while Mikel LeSure will help them balance out the offense. Let's be honest. He's still going to have to throw it if he has to play, and he's got a lot of weapons here. They had the kid Ryan Broyles was activated today, didn't have a catch, so that's one more weapon. I kind of like Burleson and Titus Young. Well, I liked everyone because the matchup was so beautiful. Burleson came through big time, and so did Titus Young on that miracle catch that he had. So absolutely, if he's out there and you have Stafford, you need Sean Hill at this point.
For the Tennessee Titans, I think this is the kind of game, John, that you envisioned Jake Locker having this year. 29 of 42, 378 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was slinging it all over the place. A touchdown to Nate Washington, one to Jared Cook, who looked good again today. But Chris Johnson, what do you do with this guy? 14 carries, 24 yards, only caught one of those 42 passes that Locker threw. I mean, at this point, the guy's not usable.
Yeah, exactly. It's god-awful. And look, one of the reasons why I didn't bail on Chris Johnson, I kind of held him steady kind of thing. I wasn't, like, down on him per se. And I didn't bail on him because I just thought that, obviously, with the lockout behind, the holdout behind him and all that, I thought that this offense would be what it was today. Maybe not every week, but just as you outlined. And why can't Chris Johnson in that environment get some carries, pop off some runs? You're slinging it all over the place. You got 3-4 wideouts on the field making plays with a tight end, throwing the ball. But there's something else going on here because it's obviously not happening. He did have a couple of runs that were okay in this game. He actually lost yardage on a lot that hurt his yardage. But again, the 2 targets. This is the only reason I think anyone with a functioning brain gave him a chance because he's got to catch the football. I mean, that's a huge part of Chris Johnson. So if he's not going to do that, and with Javon Ringer inactive again, then he's just dead. I mean, he's just absolutely worthless.
Jared Cook and Kenny Britt both got nicked late in this one. Do we know anything about either of their situations right now?
Let's see here. Don't know. Cook, shoulder, MRI on his left AC joint. That could be a separated shoulder. Kenny Britt rolled his ankle, missed some plays in the overtime. He didn't need a walking boot after the game, so the injury doesn't appear to be serious. And I probably overreacted last week to Locker's bad game because it was just so ugly. But as you mentioned, I mean, this is what we're looking at here with Jake Locker. Now, again, I made it very clear that he's a work in progress, but you saw what he can do. And how about Nate Washington? I mean, it's just unbelievable. So here's what we know. If Nate Washington is out there, then you can consider Jake Locker. If Washington's out, then forget it. I mean, it's amazing. But Britt was more involved as we thought, and what a good sign to see Kendall Wright still involved. So now you get Wright, Britt, Washington, hopefully Cook. Damian Williams made some plays. And by the way, not only can Locker run and augment the fantasy value that way, 35 yards on the ground, the O-line is really good in pass protection. They stink for the run, but boy, they can protect Locker.
Cincinnati and Washington put on an entertaining game as well today. 38-31, Bengals win it, so let's go ahead and start with them. Dalton at quarterback, 328 yards, 3 TDs. He's putting up numbers in this offense, John, averaging 289 yards and a couple of scores every week. And clearly A.J. Green is the guy. We know that. But another guy who seems to be making a lot of plays in this offense, or seemingly at least one notable play every week, is Andrew Hawkins at wide receiver.
Yeah, it's amazing because all summer I was worried about this receiving core and their lack of quality options and depth and experience, and here they are. I think statistically they may be one of the best, so it's just amazing stuff here. I don't know if they'll be able to keep this up, but geez, Dalton, huge game here, taking full advantage of those injuries for the Redskins and that shaky secondary. Of course, A.J. Green got 73 of his yards from Mohamed Sanu, so you got to feel great about A.J. Green, who right now is outdoing Julio Jones. And how about Gresham? I guess we shouldn't have totally kicked him under the carpet after 2 games, but it was so ugly. Now, hopefully, this is what you needed to do with Gresham. If Martellus Bennett, Dennis Pitta, or Kyle Rudolph was an alternative, drop him like a bad habit. But if you're in a deep league, hopefully you held on to the damn guy because there was a reason that we were pretty high on him, and finally he showed up in this game, 7 targets, 5 for 64 with a touchdown. That is exactly what I was looking at with Jermaine Gresham. First 2 games, very ugly. Body language was bad. I saw early in the game, all of a sudden, he looked. The body language was good, and lo and behold, he gets it done here. So hopefully, if you don't have a good guy like a waiver wire guy like a Bennett or a Rudolph, you held on to Gresham because he's clearly still viable.
For the Washington Redskins, it's all about RG3, and he gets it done for fantasy again today. 221 through the air and a touchdown. 12 carries, 85 yards and a touchdown on the day, and he's got over 200 yards rushing in 3 games. He's got 3 rushing touchdowns through 3 games. But heading into this one, Pierre Garçon was a question mark. He ended up not going. So who would step up? Turned out to be a guy who we've been a little frustrated with because he hasn't been a big part of the offense so far, tight end Fred Davis, who came through with 7 catches and 90 yards.
Yeah, I actually kind of liked him this week. I had him ranked higher than Gresham, and I had him ranked higher than like Heath Miller. So I was saying I loved him, but I kind of had a gut feeling that he would do something here with Garçon out. I don't really know what else to equate it to. So he's among the living. That's certainly a good sign. 7 targets, and he catches all 7. So that's absolutely a good sign. But, man, how about that RG3? I was worried because once we saw that Leon Hall was out, I was like, that's it. I'm moving him up, and we had him ranked really high. I put him over Roethlisberger, I believe, who we loved. I put him over Romo. I put him over Tom Brady. And then for a while, I was like, oh, boy, this don't look good. But how about the running for RG3? He is a gazelle out there, and he seems to avoid injury pretty well here. He's like made of rubber. 85 yards rushing, short yardage, and he gets a little garbage time production too, 222, 221 and a touch. So once again, you keep starting him until he proves you wrong for doing it, and hopefully he'll get Pierre Garçon back.
Alfred Morris continues to keep his stranglehold on the Redskins' running back job, 17 carries, 78 yards, and another touchdown this week. As we move on, in Arizona, the Cardinals made the Eagles look bad today, 27-6. Kevin Cobb gets the start against his former team. Throws for 222, a couple of scores, and Larry Fitzgerald finally busts out. 67 yards combined in his first 2 games, catches 9 today for 114 and a touch.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't love him. I had him at like 17. It was tough to go all in on him, but he was a great buy low candidate, and he was kind of splashed on the homepage this week with the players to trade and trade for. He's just too damn good to be held down, and he commands the ball, obviously. And you know what? Cobb has been okay. He hasn't really been that bad. So this is 2 games in a row now. He's totally destroyed the Eagles. The other thing, too, is the matchup. That was a little scary. He put up big numbers against them last year. But, you know, the Eagles secondary may be the weakness of their defense because Nnamdi Asomugha is not playing very well. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie is kind of okay, but just kind of there, and their safeties may not be that great. So you certainly feel good about Larry Fitzgerald if you have him, and the offense went through him. The other story of the game here was Ryan Williams because finally, we saw, granted, it's only week 3, we saw, I think, maybe a little bit of a coming out party here. Beanie Wells, I think he's potentially has a turf toe issue. Ryan Williams still rounding into form. Still, I worry about injuries with this guy, but he started to get real hot late. He popped off a really nice 25-yard run. So maybe you got something here in Ryan Williams. This is kind of what we thought would happen. It's kind of playing out all exactly as we thought. People were just going crazy after 2 games, but good news for Ryan Williams if you have him. Do not let go of him and pick him up off the waiver wire if he's been dropped.
For the Eagles, Jeremy Maclin did not play in this game. Clearly that affects Michael Vick, who finished completing less than 50% of his passes this week, just 217 yards, no scores. He has only 3 touchdowns on the year versus 6 interceptions.
Yeah, I kind of saw this coming. I wrote about it today. It's going to be ugly. Where do you rank him? It's so hard to rank Michael Vick. You know, last week he was looking scary, and he had a brilliant game. So I think we had him at like 10. I think we had him lower. I think, though, if you take the other 2 quarterbacks from Thursday, I think we had him at 13 going into the week. So maybe our subscribers were able to bench him. But he's a tough one. He's absolutely a tough one. Took a ton of shots. And remember what I said last week. Brent Selleck is the key to their whole passing attack. Obviously, no, Maclin was huge, but they got to get Selleck the ball, and it looks like the Cardinals did a good job against Brent Selleck, and therefore the entire passing attack came up a little shy here. We kind of felt that way too about Deshaun. I think against a good defense, if Maclin's not in there, you got to worry about Deshaun Jackson, who saw a lot of Patrick Peterson today.
Next game up, Atlanta and San Diego, and this one was really lopsided. 27-3 for the Falcons. Matt Ryan continues to play extremely well. 30 of 40 today, 75% for 275 yards, 3 more scores. He's got multiple touchdowns in each of his first 3 games, John.
Yeah, and I don't want to throw him under the bus for how he's been great, obviously, and certainly we gave him plenty of love this summer. But I gotta say one thing though, the MVP talk and all that, they haven't really faced off against a good defense yet. So, and we thought the Chargers were doing well through 2 games, but we brought up that they weren't challenged, and they got challenged in this one, and they really dropped the ball. So yeah, you're loving it here with Matt Ryan, and obviously Julio, who got hurt with his hand, then he came back and scored. Thank God. But yeah, Matt Ryan, I think will have. I don't think they're going to roll over everyone. Put it that way. I think they will have some rougher games. But the good news is in their division, they should do well against Carolina. They should do well against New Orleans, and they should do relatively well against Tampa Bay. So I'm not even looking at their schedule now. So maybe they don't have any shutdown defenses. But certainly you're feeling damn good. And even Michael Turner scored, for God's sake. So man, things must be going well in Atlanta.
Yeah, Michael Turner scored 2 weeks in a row now, 80 yards on the day. And talk a little bit about Jacquizz Rodgers, who touched the ball 15 times here, 67 yards, scored a touchdown. And he was the guy actually at the very end of the game who was closing it out, getting those carries late in the 4th.
Yeah, the only problem I have with him, because we liked him a lot going into the summer, the only problem I have with him going into this one was he didn't do anything. He literally did nothing in 2 games. So I'm like, okay, well, I like him. We like him. Pick him up if he's out there for depth, but I don't know how you start him until he actually does something. Well, he's actually done something. So now I think you can roll them in a deeper league, like a 14-team. He's a perfect flex in a 14-team league or in a 12-team league if you have bye-week issues. So, again, 5 grabs, 35 with a touch, and 10 carries. This is pretty much what we kind of were hoping for Jacquizz Rodgers in terms of the usage.
Tony Gonzalez caught 9 in this game. He's got 21 receptions through the first 3 games. As we move it over to San Diego, and Ryan Matthews made his 2012 debut today, touched the ball 15 times, 76 yards, did not score. Obviously, nobody did for the Chargers today. Outside of Matthews getting some decent yardage, really not much to report here.
Yeah, it was not a good day for Phil Rivers and the offensive line and the offense as a whole. Gates just missed a touchdown. We don't know what's going on with Gates. I got to watch that game. Had a chance to score, but you're really disappointed here. 3 for 22. I'll tell you, if you have Martellus Bennett and Gates, or even Kyle Rudolph and Gates, maybe even Dennis Pitta, who scored here tonight, Sunday night, and Gates, you may want to try and just trade Gates while his value is. I do think he'll be in decent shape here and he'll have some solid games, but clearly all those beautiful vibes in the summer, I don't think he's going to reach the expectations that were raised because of those vibes.
Next game up, Houston and Denver, and the Texans. Boy, they continue to look great, John. This game wasn't really as close as the final score would indicate. 31-25, the Texans win it. But let's start with the Broncos offense, who I don't know that anybody's had a tougher opening 3 games than the Broncos have. Pittsburgh, Atlanta, and then Houston today. So if you've got Peyton Manning, look, you had to throw 52 passes in this game. For fantasy, he comes through again, though, 330 yards, 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, they went to Stokely and Dreesen, 2 guys you're not using. But if you have Peyton Manning, it's going to get a little bit easier for him.
It's going to get a lot easier looking at the schedule. I was tweeting that last week when they were playing on Monday Night Football. I don't have it in front of me again, but it's pretty darn good here. And it's a work in progress. I think mentally Manning was just off last week, and physically he was off too. It looked a little bit better in this game from what I saw. Demaryius Thomas had an ugly game. He failed to get his foot down for a potential touchdown, and then he just missed another touchdown. Lack of timing, lack of continuity. So it's tough. It's a week-to-week situation here. I said, I think last week, that I felt that Thomas was getting by purely on his elite athleticism, which I think is fair because week 1 he had a screen pass, he took 70 yards. Week 2 he had a brilliant touchdown reception. Week 3, some of his flaws were exposed, but he almost scored, like I said. You're probably going to start him every week. And I did, while I ranked him fairly high because you had to and he should have scored, I did kind of like Decker in this game based on the matchup. And Decker's not perfect either. He should have scored a touchdown. Dreesen's touchdown was through Decker's hands. He should have scored a touchdown. I'm not feeling great watching Decker play, but look, people who are looking for bridges to jump off of, you absolutely feel better. Granted, he threw it a lot, but you feel better about 11 targets and 8 grabs for 136 for Eric Decker. So I think slowly but surely, when the matchups are better, Decker's got to find the end zone, but yeah, I think he's going to be okay.
Willis McGahee, just 12 carries for 36 yards in this game, though he did get hurt in the third quarter and did not return. As we take it over to Houston and the Texans, 4 big passing touchdowns today for Matt Schaub, 290 yards on the day as well. But of those 4 TDs, 3 of them are the guys that you're likely using. Arian Foster caught one, Owen Daniels caught one, Andre Johnson caught one, Kevin Walter had the other. If you're desperate, maybe you're using him. But a solid day all the way around for the Texans offense.
No doubt, and it's a tough call. I mean, how do you project Schaub? Because last week he's not throwing it a lot, and last week he did nothing. And you got to figure this week Andre Johnson's going to get shadowed by Champ Bailey, maybe with some help. I think that was probably the case. He only had 2 catches, but of course one goes for a big play. So Schaub, I was wrong. We were all wrong. I don't know if anyone. I just don't feel comfortable with him on this team right now and saying, okay, unless they're playing a really great offense to where they're probably going to have to throw it to keep up. If they're playing Green Bay, yeah, I'm fine with it. But otherwise, it's a week-to-week deal with Schaub. He's a tough one here because no one could have predicted 4 touchdowns and 290 on the road against a pretty good Denver defense. But that's what they do. They run the ball and play action, and they take their shots. Some weeks they hit, some weeks they don't. Well, this week they hit many times.
Pittsburgh at Oakland, another game that went right down to the wire today. Raiders won it 34-31, and you nailed this one, John, with the Steelers. Oakland Raiders secondary decimated by injuries. Roethlisberger really had his way. Throws for 384 yards, 4 touchdowns, and the best part is they went to all the key guys. Mike Wallace got 1, Antonio Brown got 1, Heath Miller got 2. He's now got touchdowns in all 3 games this year.
Yeah, so does that Antonio Brown, that fumble recovery, does it count as a touchdown? It seems like every league is counting it as a touchdown because he caught the pass, and then he fumbled, and then he recovered his own fumble. So I guess for now we'll call it a touchdown.
Yeah, as of right now. Yeah, that's what they're doing with it as of right now, but we'll see if that changes. Yeah,
787 otherwise is still pretty good, though, in a PPR. Yeah, that was an easy call. I'm not going to take any credit for that because the Raiders secondary is god-awful. But thank God Big Ben came through, 384-4. We had him very high. Wallace we had very, very high. We had both Brown and Wallace in our top 5, I believe. Close to it, top 7. So yeah, it's nice to see when something is looking like it should totally happen on paper. It is nice to see it actually transpire here. The other thing I'd mention is if Mendenhall's on your waiver wire, I'd pick him up because it's not happening. Jonathan Dwyer, yeah, I got on him somewhat late because he was seriously pushing Redmond, but I was never really like this guy, Dwyer, and he's dead. Redmond is just kind of stuck in the mud. Mendenhall's moving around pretty well in practice. I'm telling you, he's going to get 15 carries if he's up for it every week. Almost back to the old role for Mendenhall because Big Ben took some hits here in this game yet again. They got to run the ball, and Mendenhall is on the mend, so to speak. Bye week this week, so he's going to play week 5. You can mark that down.
For the Raiders, Darren McFadden had that long 64-yard touchdown. He finally busted one today. Finishes the day 18 carries, 113 yards, and a touchdown, which is certainly much better than really you had a right to expect him to do against this Steelers run defense. Carson Palmer throws for 209, 3 touchdowns. Nice to see Denarius Moore get one. Darius Hayward-Bay got one, and, of course, the very scary injury with Hayward-Bay had to get carted off, which, of course, you hate to see. Do we know anything about his condition right now?
I mean, other than the He's taken to the hospital. The neck injury, no one knows. I mean, we know he gave the thumbs up as he was carted off the field because it was looking pretty scary there. Carson Palmer, geez, I put him on our sleeper list, values list, going into the preseason simply because he was getting drafted so late. I actually wasn't sold on him. And I'm watching over the last couple of weeks. I'm like, crap, I should have taken him off the list. But he's put up numbers. It's amazing. I don't know how the hell he's doing it because the passing attack doesn't look all that great. But you did mention Denarius Moore. Now, I don't think this is an ideal environment for him. Ideally, he's playing with Jacoby Ford in the slot, Haywood Bay on the outside, split end there, possession type of role, Jacoby Ford a threat, running the ball with effectiveness, and then he's your deep threat. That's his deal. But we'll take it. 10 targets we'll absolutely take. Palmer is very comfortable throwing it to him. He did score, so we've been pushing him all year, and we're still pushing him. Not a bad third receiver. It's kind of hard at this point still to totally rely on him, but Palmer is putting up numbers. As for McFadden, hell, you will absolutely take that because we all know that the zone blocking scheme has been a struggle here, and if you can do that against Pittsburgh, that's a good sign. But here's the other thing. I'm a little disappointed in the receiving because he's done diddly the last 2 weeks, but the bottom line is Darren McFadden is healthy. So start him every week, take it, whatever he does, and just live with it and just ride this thing out here because guess what? The matchups are going to be better. He's got KC twice. He'll kill them. He's got Denver twice, and he's been a notorious Bronco killer. And he's got the Chargers twice, and as they showed today, their defense isn't all that great. So that's 6 games in the division upcoming that are good matchups for McFadden.
Tight end Brandon Myers, John, led the team with 55 receiving yards today. Week 1, he went 5 for 65. Last week, caught 6 for 86, caught 4 for 55 today. This guy kind of came out of nowhere, and he's surprisingly relevant so far.
Yeah, I've seen the light here. I had him as a reach this week. The bottom line is it's kind of related to what I said with Denarius Moore. They're not necessarily really operating under ideal circumstances here with their receiving core. So they absolutely need some help. And right now, Brandon Myers is giving them the support they need. So, yeah, in a deeper league, he's viable.
As we're doing this right now, John, the Sunday Nighter is going, the Patriots and the Ravens. Patriots got out to an early lead. They still have a lead 20-14 right now. Tom Brady has 214 and a touchdown to Julian Edelman. And a lot's been made of Wes Welker and what's his role in the offense. Is he being phased out? He looks pretty active so far tonight.
Edelman? Or Welker? Yeah, I know, because I'm playing against you in our league here. I'm in a league with you. I'm 0-2 after a upsetting loss last week, Paul. So I gotta win here. So maybe you could you lay down for the rest of the week here and let me.
I think you've got it. I need a big second half here from Gronkowski. I don't know that it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, at least you threw me a bone there because I can't be 0-3 in that league. Although we all know that there was extenuating circumstances during that draft. But anywho. Edelman's a factor. Obviously, he is a factor. So while, I feel okay about Welker with 96, the fact that Julian Edelman has more catches and a touchdown, Paul, that's not good. Yeah. That is not good.
How about Brandon Bolden vulturing a touchdown early in this one? 1 carry, 2 yards, and the touchdown.
Here we go again. I think it was the right thing to do to back Stephen Ridley. The kid looked really good. I don't know what the hell's going on here. I don't know if Ridley said something about Belichick's family and practice. I don't know what's going on here, but it's not good. Woodhead continues to get carries. Brandon Bolden with the vulture job. So here we go. So now we got to back off Ridley, and now every week we got to worry, is he going to get the ball?
Yeah. Quickly for the Ravens, Joe Flacco has 184 yards, a couple of scores as we're doing this. Jacoby Jones just caught a ball. I don't know if he's in or out on this one.
I think he's out.
Is he somebody who should be on the radar at this point?
He's playing well, and they need help. They absolutely need help. In a deeper league, I think he could do worse because he can run. He's seemingly playing at with more confidence and focus in Baltimore, and he's always been a pretty good red zone guy. Yeah, I think you could make the argument that he does deserve to be on the radar.
All right, you guys, that's about it. Tomorrow night, you got the Packers, you got the Seahawks, and we are just about done. For John Hansen, I'm Paul Kelly. This has been Week 3 of the FantasyGuru.com Sunday Night Wrap-Up Podcast. Good luck the rest of week number 3.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.